All right there, divers. Sorry for the delay on this one, but I'm still playing catch up with the IRL job ever since returning from the trip to Helldivers HQ. But for today, we've got a known issue that the devs are working on, Helldivers, climbing the Steam charts once again, a major order that is quickly going sideways, an emergency patch to the patch, and some questions about the recent war bond weapon changes. Thank you so much for your continued love that you show for the channel and my content. If you want to support the channel, the easiest and free way is to hit subscribe, and don't forget to ring the notifications bell so you never miss one of my future upload alerts. And now, it's time to spread some managed democracy with Helldivers. Okay, first things first, I wanted to kind of set the record straight when it comes to me and the other attendees that were flown over to Arrowhead for the 1-year anniversary, and claims of positive content agreements and expectations placed on us by the studio. And this is coming in hot on the heels of yesterday's weapon balancing patch, which, by the way, was completed well before we ever arrived in Stockholm. Anyways, based on how some of the creators actually responded to those changes, to some out in the community, it was evidence that we were bought and paid for by the studio and were therefore not allowed to post negative feedback about the game to our channels. This is absolutely and 1,000,000% false, and if such an agreement had been presented to us before or during the trip, I would have first just declined the trip outright, or if I found out during the trip, I would have asked to be sent home on the next plane, because that's not something I can live with. I'm honest with my thoughts and oftentimes very outspoken about past changes made to the game, and Arrowhead knew that going in. They knew exactly what they were getting with me and the other creators, and they told us they welcome that kind of honesty. So there. Now you know, and let's get into the latest from Helldivers HQ. So, with a little under 24 hours to go, the current major order is really starting to take a turn for the worse. As of the time of this recording, we have secured 7 of the required 11 successful Illuminate defense campaigns, and 4 more in under 24 hours seems like a bridge too far. Now, for those of you really looking to mop up some squid, as of the time of this recording, there is one mission currently available in the Solaria sector on the planet Yrulta. In terms of the wormhole, formerly known as Meridia, well, it's nearly to Angel's Venture. And by the way, I'd love to hear your theories on where you think this thing will finally come to rest. Are we stopping here at Angel's Venture? Is it chugging all the way over to Super Earth? Or, tinfoil hat time, are we looking at it ending up in, say, bot territory for a possible alliance with the automatons? Drop me a comment and let's find out where you stand on all of this. Unfortunately, I forgot to hit record before we dove in this morning for this footage, but today's daily or personal order is to kill 3 harvesters, and I know that many of you are still grinding through the current war bond, so hit an Illuminate mission and drop 3 walkers for another 15 medals. In case you haven't yet logged in today, Helldivers got another game update this morning when patch 1.002.104 went live, and this is being characterized as an emergency update. Now, for me on PC, this one amounted to just 62.4 megs in size, and it had just one fix in it for a common crash which could occur when dropping into a mission. Now, I've been staying active over in the official Helldivers Discord, and since yesterday, the amount of chatter about chain crashing has greatly increased, and I hope today's fix will at least slow those down, because at the end of the day, crashing out of games stinks. And I've been there, and I've done that, and getting those issues handled should be priority number 1 for the team at Arrowhead. Also, and I mention this every few videos, but if you are on Steam, it's always a good move to download whatever the new update happens to be, and then always, and I mean always, verify your game files. There's always 1 or 2 files that are missing, and Steam has to re-download them, and trust me, I've forgotten to verify my files in the past, and it's really screwed up my gaming experience. So, again, verify those game files. Next, we need to take a look at Steam, but not the back end and or updates, but at the top sellers list. And again, Helldivers is blasted back into the top 10, currently holding down the number 9 spot here in the US. I also checked in other regions around the world, and HD2 fluctuates as high as 7th place in certain areas. Now, this list is compiled not based on units sold, but dollars generated. And you may be asking, what happened to vault Helldivers back into the top 10? And besides the press about it being the game's 1-year anniversary, and as you can see on screen, the game is currently 20% off on Steam, which probably had a very small impact on what has just happened. The big factor here is the war bond. We saw this in the past with the Killzone Superstore Page 1 offerings when Helldivers shot up into the top 5, and even here at number 9, it shows you just how much these war bonds and super credit purchases can affect the game's revenue streams. And just how well the current war bond has sold gets put further into context when you look at just how strong HD2 is hanging with these other heavy hitters further up the list, like Civ 7, KCD2, and even the Monster Hunter Wilds pre-orders. So for a game that is now a year old, Helldivers 2 is still hanging with the latest and greatest from AAA studios. Turning next to the known issues board, and one new addition to the list has to do with the entrenchment tool, aka the shovel. And after you pick it up and use it, it's causing every other support weapon to be held like the shovel. So you have machine guns pointed up towards the clouds, but firing forwards from really weird angles. And as you can see from the footage, it is really off-putting to see your weapon behaving like this, and so it's now showing up on the known issues board under gameplay. So there, now you know. At least you know the devs are on it. And also, if you want a workaround to reset your character, just toss a grenade and you'll be back to normal. Today's mod showcase and thumbnail is another modded armor set brought to you by 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐿, and this one takes the SC30 lightweight Trailblazer Scout armor and adds a gold reskin and camo to it, which they have dubbed the Trailblazer Gilded Knight, that is also added on the gold-plated helmet. Now, in general, I don't use Scout armor, no offense to anyone out there that rocks it, but you know what, this mod does make it look tasty, and I've used it on today's thumbnail as well. As always, full credits to the mod author, and links can be found in the video description to this one. As of yesterday's video focusing in on the weapon changes to both the SickleDE and Ultimatum, I received some community questions about how I personally felt about those changes and what I would have done differently, if anything. And although I've had very little time with these two weapons before they were changed, I did want to respond. First up, let's talk about the double edge. And I've got to preface my comments with this mention that I'm not a big fan of weapons that ramp up in damage output the more you do something. In this case, it's just firing, but yeah, again, I don't like them. Give me a steady and consistent damage curve, and I as a player will account for damage drop-off, etc. You know what I mean. Anyways, we as players have really been wanting and asking for a solid and reliable medium armor pen auto rifle, and the previous version of the double edge gave us exactly what we wanted, with the little caveat that it could damage you in return for getting too greedy on the trigger. Now with the new variant, we've got Armor Pen 2, which lasts for a second or two, and then you're back up to Armor Pen 3, just like the original variant, and then it turns to a slightly higher damage model, still at Armor Pen 3 version, but at that point you're taking twice the health damage ticks you used to, and then they've also added on this Armor Pen 4 kind of final gear to the weapon, which me as a player will almost never see. Again, the previous version worked beautifully, and that's not to say that the current version is trash, because it's still a very capable weapon, but if I could adjust this current version, this is what I would do. I would first split this damage model into consistent thirds instead of asymmetrical fourths like we see with the current rework, with the first third of the heat cycle starting at Armor Pen 3 and 55 base damage. So that's just like the original version we had. The second third would stay at Armor Pen 3, damage would bump up or increase to 65, and we would pick up 10 damage per second versus us, the player. And the final third would stay again at Armor Pen 3, move up to a base damage of 75, and the damage against the player would increase to 25 damage per second against the player, and the fire effect would also be applied. This way, we have a fairly consistent damage model that rewards players with increased damage the longer they hammer down on the trigger, but it also increases damage against them. So there's that push-pull dynamic the studio was going for. And also, in my scenario, it doesn't necessitate the use of heavy fire-resistant armor along with the vitality booster. But that's just my take on it, and I welcome your feedback on my model, or just post your own thoughts on it as well. I look forward to reading your comments. The Ultimatum Debate is far more heated, entirely due not to the weapon or damage output itself, because none of that was touched by Arrowhead, and it's still an insanely strong sidearm. But this one's entirely centered on outside factors, namely the siege-ready armor passive and the Hellpod optimization. Now, where this one gets ultra tricky, at least in my humble opinion, is just how dramatic the shift in available ammo before and after the changes has been towards the Ultimatum. Before, with Siege Ready and Hellpod optimization, you would land with 1 in the chamber and 2 in reserve, basically giving you 3 orbital precision strikes strapped to your hip, which is mental. After the changes, everything has been reduced to 1. You drop in and you've got that shot, basically reducing the on-tap ammo by 2/3, which I understand is a lot. Again, don't flame me here. These are just my opinions, but here's what I would do. First off, I think we can all agree it is long overdue that Hellpod optimization is deleted from the game as a booster, and we as Helldivers hit the planet with a full stock of ammo, stims, and grenades. Super Earth's citizens work hard. They pay those taxes and they buy those war bonds so that the Helldivers can go into battle fully equipped, and dropping us in missing half of everything is crazy. So yeah, that's first. Hellpod optimization is terminated. Next is Siege Ready, which reads an extra 20% ammo in the description, where it also says only affects primaries, which we know it does not. And Arrowhead has listened to player feedback and decided to leave this one functioning as is. But how an extra 20% rounds up to equal another Ultimatum grenade is a pretty big fat rounding error. And sorry for all the context here, but it's important for this result. I would totally delete Hellpod optimization from the game, bump up the spare ammo to 1 additional grenade round, making the Ultimatum 1 in the chamber and 1 in reserve, and then I would do something internally with Siege Ready so that the rounding errors would be far less egregious. It kind of splits the line between what it was and what it has become, without setting the precedent of excluding weapons from passive effects because they are deemed too powerful. But again, I'm just one nerd with a microphone and a YouTube channel that has his own opinions for the direction of Helldivers. And as always, your feedback is both valuable and appreciated. So I'm going to add my pinned comment with those questions about what you would do for both the SickleDE and Ultimatum. So make sure to respond to my comment, or you know what, just drop me a comment in general and let's see what you would have done or would do in the future with both of these weapons. Remember to hit subscribe and to ring that notifications bell so you never miss one of my future upload alerts. All my socials and links to today's sources can be found in the video description. And until the next one, this is 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏